Welcome to the Liberty Lobbyist, where we teach you political lessons from the purple state of New Hampshire so you can advocate for liberty no matter where you live. I am Melissa Blasek. I am a former New Hampshire state representative and the current executive director and lobbyist for a grassroots liberty organization called Rebuild NH. So much has happened in New Hampshire politics, and while you may not live in New Hampshire, I think that you would find it interesting to just sort of hear what's been going on with our new Republican, and I put that in very loose quotes, Governor Kelly Ayotte. This It's so funny. I went to a family reunion in May, and my very young 20s cousin, who is conservative and active in libertarian politics, comes up to me, and he knows that this is what I do, and he says, "So Kelly Ayotte seems pretty good so far, huh?" And I said, "Oh, she hasn't been tested yet. She hasn't really done anything. She's really just been sitting, keeping the seat warm. Wait till the summer, because that's when her real test comes, when she actually has to sign and veto bills." And that's the thing. New Hampshire has probably the weakest governor in America. And you may say, well, how could it possibly be different? Well, the executive branch in New Hampshire is split into two parts. Unlike every other executive branch in America, there is the governor and the executive council. The executive council has to approve the governor's asks on pretty much everything except for signing and vetoing bills. That is the only thing, well, other than emergency powers, actually, that the governor is solely responsible for without having any other checks and balances other than the legislature. If she wants to accept federal funds, if she wants to appoint a bureaucrat or head of a department or anything like that, she has to get executive council approval. We call the executive council the watchdogs of New Hampshire. So we have a very long legislative season in New Hampshire. The legislature did not wrap up their duties until the end of June. So now she's starting to sign and veto bills. In my last episode, I talked about how with a whole group of liberty activists, we decided to compile a bunch of parental rights bills into what we call the parental rights package. The top of which was the Parent Bill of Rights, which frankly, the bill didn't really do very much, but she was very hot to trot to sign it because politicians love to piss on you and tell you it rained. And they love legislation that sounds good, that doesn't actually proactively do anything. And that's exactly what that bill was. But we were hoping, well, she wants to be the pro-parental rights governor by signing this bill. Good. Let's label the rest of these bills pro-parental rights and see how it works out. I said I would update you how it worked out, and it did not work out very well. One of the bills still has not reached her desk yet. So we'll see. I do have a feeling that one will be signed. But she signed one and she vetoed two this past week. It was a tough day in New Hampshire as she signed 101 bills and vetoed 7. I started hearing about the vetoes before I saw the list of signatures. The number one bill that I've been concerned about getting signed this year was the school mask bill, banning public school mask mandates forevermore. This bill has been vetoed twice before by the previous Republican governor. And I put all of my focus on, I'm like, third time has to be a charm. I can't do this again. Like, it needs to be done now. And so I've really been focusing a lot of my time, energy, and political capital on that particular bill. And I've been doing that now for a while, even through the last election cycle. I tried to make it as much of an election issue as possible. There were 2 other bills that I didn't think were that big of a deal. And so I'm thinking, they have to get signed. Like, they're not that big of a deal. So one of them was banning porn in schools, right? In school libraries. Plenty of Republican states have dealt with bills like this. I mean, this is the left likes to label them as a book ban, but it's not a book ban. It is literally just saying that obscenity laws that already exist in this state have to apply to schools also. There can't be an exemption for schools. And when I am saying that this stuff is porn, I mean that they are actually porn. Genitalia showing, like actual sex being shown. A lot of times it is sex between what look like young children and older men. It's very, very disturbing stuff that is in public schools and needs to be taken out. And she vetoed that bill. She vetoed a bill to just say every non academic survey in New Hampshire has to have affirmative parental consent for the child to be able to take it, except for one, the CDC Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And if you don't know what this is, you should. And you should not have your child take this survey, in my opinion. And most states do have an opt out. You can opt out of it. Okay. But you have to know about it and then go and fill out a form and say, I don't want my child taking this survey. It's not an opt in, it's an opt out. So most parents aren't paying attention. They don't know what's happening. The kid has to take it. And the reason why I say that your child, I personally would never allow my child to take it. They start taking it as young as I think 6th grade, and it introduces them to a lot of concepts about sex, a lot of concepts about gender, sexual identity, and self-harm. The part that I find particularly disturbing is the parts about self-harm. I learned things that I didn't even know existed when it came to self-harm as a 30-something-year-old adult, having read this survey. And I'm sorry, but the studies show that the more that children obsess about and know about and think about mental illness, the more likely they are to become mentally ill. I would not allow my child to take this survey and have that suggestion out there. Does this survey actually help the child? Let's say a child fills out the survey and red flags are going off, red flags are going off. Is there any way of helping that child? No, that's not what the survey is for. The survey is then to simply dole out federal funds to NGOs who, quote, help with mental illness. So when we introduce this bill to say, no, this survey can't be an exception anymore, it needs to be affirmatively opt in for parents. The only people there to oppose the bill were all the NGOs. It's basically an adult work program. Okay. This is a work program bill because they're afraid that if they don't get high enough uptake on this survey, that they are going to lose their funding and lose their jobs. And so they were just there to beg for their money. And when she vetoed it, that's exactly why she said she vetoed it, because she was afraid that people would lose their federal dollars. It is always the poison federal money, I tell you, always the poison federal money. All right, I got way more of this story, but let's do a couple sponsors first. Ever wonder why your brain feels foggy even when you're eating clean and exercising? It might not be burnout. It could be parasites. Groundbreaking research from Dr. Alan McDonald revealed a direct link between chronic parasitic infections and neurological diseases like multiple sclerosis. Parasites can cause inflammation, nerve damage, and long-term cognitive decline. More reason to do a full body cleanse at least once a year. The Wellness Company has a solution for you, ivermectin and membenzol, the gold standard parasite solution, now combined in one cleanse combo designed to eliminate harmful invaders and support your immune system naturally. Medical grade, not some like trendy herbal gimmicks. Fill out a quick intake form and get a 3-month supply shipped straight to your door. Maha is officially here, and the Wellness Company is making hard to get medications digitally accessible so you can live your best life. Head to dailyclout.health and use code dailyclout to save $60 off plus free shipping on orders. Cleanse your body today. If you're like me and you're getting to that age where your body just like hurts all the time, then listen up. Don't reach for another painkiller until you learn about this little known turmeric hack for pain and inflammation. You've probably already heard about turmeric being used to fight inflammation and joint pain. But here's the thing. Not all turmeric is created equal. Regular turmeric powder in your pantry might help a little, but a leading pain doctor from Connecticut discovered a special turmeric extract that is 200 times more powerful than what you'll find in standard turmeric. And when he shared this turmeric hack with his patients, the results were shocking. This turmeric extract attacks pain at the source, turning it off like a light switch so that pain not only goes away, but stays away. Dr. Josh, the brains behind it all, has spent over 20 years helping hundreds of thousands of Americans finally break free from constant aches and stiffness. And his turmeric hack has been the backbone of their success. Say goodbye to expensive sugar surgeries, pain injections, and ineffective over the counter medications, and say hello to pain free living. This is incredible stuff. Once I started taking it regularly, I really noticed a difference. But again, you can't just use any old turmeric. So if you want to learn more about Dr. Josh, his turmeric hack, and the exact method for how to use it in your daily routine, just go to goldenrevive.com/dailyclout. The link is right below this video in the description. Just click it and start your journey towards a pain-free, healthier living. Okay. Same times. It's all the same day. I had a very busy Tuesday. The news comes out that she has also signed a bill that I was not involved with, and I'm just being honest. It's a bill that I wanted to pass. I just was not personally involved in it, but it was a huge, huge, huge deal to the conservative activists in the state. She ran on, I mean, I literally have a picture of her at an event with Riley Gaines with proudly holding up a sign while she was campaigning to be governor, saying, "Save women's sports." She vetoed a bill to require that men and women have separate spaces, right? Bathrooms, that sort of thing. The quote bathroom bill. And that really, I mean, people went through the roof, and I don't blame them. Like, I get it. Okay. Now, her veto message on that one versus the other ones. There was another one of my bills that she vetoed that was unrelated to the Parent Bill of Rights, but it was it was a no-brainer bill. When I say this was not a big deal, I mean this was not a big deal. And her veto message was so off base. She did not understand the bill at all. And she was apparently too busy slash, I don't know, lazy to call a legislator and have it explained to her, because that was an embarrassing veto. That was an embarrassing veto message. But anyway, back to the gender bill. So, or the separation of private spaces. The veto message was basically saying, I don't think that the bill is specific enough or enforceable enough, and I think it'll just cause too many legal troubles. Give me another bill that is more enforceable. Now, maybe I'll go with that, but we could have fixed it next year to up to her standards. She didn't have to veto it, but she vetoed it. Same time, I find out that she signed the mask bill. The one bill I was afraid that she would veto, I was not afraid she would veto the others. That's the one she decides to sign. But sitting back and thinking about it, it made sense. We had created a movement around the mask bill for years. We hounded her about it when she was campaigning. We didn't hound her about the survey bill. The activists are very upset about the bathroom bill, so much that it's like they don't really want to take the win on the mask bill, which makes me kind of sad. I've been told kind of repeatedly, like, oh, well, the masks aren't even a thing anymore, but like boys going into girls' bathrooms is a thing. And my response to that is this: every single child in this state was threatened, at least threatened, if not almost all of them had to wear a mask to go to school, at least for some period of time. Every single last one of them. We traumatized and damaged a generation across the board because of these stupid, worthless masks. Most of your daughters will never actually be in a position where they have to share a bathroom with a boy. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It does happen. It's not ubiquitous in the way that the masks were. And every ounce of testimony against that bill, even this year, was how they want to have the ability to mandate masks if there's a bad flu season, or even they brought up a bad norovirus season, as if masks work. Oh my gosh. Swear to God, these are flat earthers at this point about masks. But this was a huge win. I believe there were only 2 other states in the country that have banned mask mandates for schools, like forevermore. Um, I am very, very, very happy that we finally did this. But here's something that I want words, pearls of wisdom that I want to impart upon people. Kelly Ayotte, who, if you don't know who Kelly Ayotte is and what her history is, she's a former New Hampshire senator, federal senator, U.S. senator. And she was, Lindsey Graham's best bud, okay, when she was down in DC. So she's your true kind of classic, old school, K Street neocon Republican. Okay. So I had no illusions that she was going to be any kind of greatness. Okay. But I got to tell you, New Hampshire has been electorally challenged. We actually became way more Republican when it came to our voter registrations around the time. Well, really, especially since COVID. But we've also been saddled with, frankly, the unelectability of Donald Trump. Everyone's like, oh, well, Trump won, so he's electable. No, we Republicans won, frankly, most likely, despite Trump. And in a state like New Hampshire, he is uniquely hated. That is why he never wins this state, despite us having more registered Republicans here than ever before. Okay. So we have had unique challenges to getting Republicans. We almost always have a Republican legislature. Almost always. We don't have a Republican federal delegation because we're still holding on to these old Democrats from when we had more Democrat, PVI leaning. That's like the amount of Democrats registered to vote. And people love their incumbents, right? But, listen, I legitimately was nervous that if we nominated a more conservative person to be for governor, though the other choice was not even that much more conservative, but he was a little bit more conservative. But he didn't have the name ID. He didn't have the money. And I didn't think, with Trump on the ballot that he could win, because I thought he would end up getting pretty much the same numbers that Trump did, which was that he barely, and I mean barely, we're talking like the skin of the teeth, lost to Harris in the state. And Kelly Ayotte managed to quite soundly beat Trump. Beat Trump, sorry. Yes, surpass Trump's numbers, but beat the Democrat. Because she has name ID and she has money. And there you go. And that is what happened. And that's now who we are saddled with. But I had no illusions that she was going to be a good Republican governor. Understand that 95% of politicians have no principles, especially Republicans. Democrats actually do have more principles. I don't agree with their principles, but they have more of them. 95% of them have no principles, you guys. Understand that and accept it and work within your reality. Sitting around and whining and complaining about it doesn't do squat. I don't sit around complaining that Kelly Ayotte and her predecessor, Chris Sununu, had no principles and were not conservatives and govern like a liberal. I played the game. I have played that long game with that mask bill. She had her arm twisted so badly with that mask bill. It's not even funny. And so she felt compelled to vote for it. And I am sitting here and I am promising the conservative activists in my state, I will work on playing the game with the bills that she just vetoed so that she eventually, down the line, feels compelled to vote for them. We didn't do that. No one, we didn't play the game. I didn't think a couple of those bills were going to get vetoed. So why do I need to twist arms? I just didn't think so. Well, now I know better. And I will play the game and I will put in the work like I did with the mask bill so that someday the governor of New Hampshire feels compelled to sign that bill, just like she did the mask bill. So we had we had 3 really big accomplishments this year. We limited the authority of town health officers to make ordinances. So what happened during COVID with town mask mandates can never happen again in New Hampshire. Lots of other things, though. Those town health officers were totally out of control. We ended the vaccine rulemaking authority and we banned public school mask mandates. I mean, I have a slew of other bills that got signed too, but for me, on the things that I worked on pretty much all by myself, not with other activist groups attached, like like we supported the school choice bill, we supported the parental bill of rights, but tons of other groups were helping with those. Of the ones where it was really like my group and me really going for it solo, those were our biggest accomplishments. We've been working towards those since our inception in 2020, and 5 years worth of work. You got to play the long game with politics. All right, we are going to have on Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, and we're going to talk about all of her activism efforts. But before we do that, are you ready to move easily and independently without pain or stiffness holding you back? Do you want to look in the mirror and see a plump, hydrated glow instead of more fine lines and wrinkles? Discover Native Path Collagen, made of only type 1 and 3 collagen fibers, the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in your body. Found in your cartilage, bones, skin, hair, nails, and gut, types 1 and 3 provide maximum benefits without the need for unnecessary fillers. Native Path Collagen is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, or artificial sweeteners, plus third-party tested for heavy metals, ensuring purity and safety. Completely flavorless Native Path Collagen can be added to anything: coffee, smoothies, oatmeal, you name it. I always add it to my coffee every single morning. And also, if you froth it, makes a nice frothy beverage. Its peptide formula makes it more bioavailable, meaning it's absorbed more easily and mixes perfectly without clumping. And the best part, Native Path offers amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. With over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, 8,000 5-star reviews, and a 365-day no-risk guarantee, Native Path is a trusted choice. Plus, they offer an 800 number for any questions about usage, recipes, or ingredients, and you'll speak to a real person ready to help. Join their private Facebook community to share success stories, recipes, and support each other on this journey called life. Visit getnativepath.com/dailyclout and start your transformation today. That is GETNATIVEPATH.com/DAILYCLOUT. Right. Welcome to the Liberty Lobbyist, Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, obviously, I didn't know you or of you before COVID. You want to tell us a little bit about your background? I don't know anything about you pre-COVID.
Well, I'm an ear, nose, and throat doctor. I grew up in Atlanta. I trained at Stanford. I moved to Texas in 2012, I think. No, sorry, 2003. I've got my decades mixed up. uh, I just worked in a private practice for a while, and then I started having kids. And I ended up having 4 boys in 5 years. And so I took some time off. And I wasn't even sure I was going to go back, but I had an itch that I had to scratch, and I ended up opening up a solo practice 6 months before the pandemic hit, and sort of stumbled into COVID. I mean, as ear, nose, and throat, we see respiratory tract infections, not unusual. And so when patients started coming in needing help, I just did what I thought I was supposed to do. And at first, just common sense, used breathing treatments, treated for secondary infection. I used steroids if I needed to. I briefly tried hydroxychloroquine, but the government, our Texas government, shut it down. I mean, we were prohibited from using it temporarily. Then I used monoclonal antibodies. Those worked great. And then the government took over distribution. And that's when I turned to ivermectin. And so I had already had I was known in town as a place to go get treatment for COVID. And then when I couldn't get monoclonal antibodies anymore, then I thought, well, let me try ivermectin. And I was actually nervous about using it because of all the hype. But I really dug into the safety. And once I knew it was safe, then I thought, well, why not try it? And then I found that it did work. So, everything that I've been doing is very firsthand. I've never treated this many patients with a single disease in my career. I doubt I ever will again, because for a few years, all I saw was COVID day in and day out. And we opened our clinic to 7 days a week. So I soon became an expert, with not what I expected at all. And then I just got in trouble because I started sharing what I was seeing publicly.
I had no idea that you had only started that practice 6 months before COVID. That
Yes.
is wild. And then of course, I mean, tell me why it is you're an ear, nose, and throat doctor. You would think going into a respiratory viral pandemic that it would be people like you that people would look to, health officials would look to, government officials would look to, and why it was that you were so, I mean, there weren't that many people willing to actually just treat the symptoms that they were seeing. Why is it that you think that doctors were so reticent even before like kind of the persecutions? Why was it that doctors were so reticent to treat COVID? I mean, my in-laws are older and they got it pretty early on. We're talking like April 2020. So there was no people didn't know how bad like the medical persecution was going to get, and yet they were told, even they were, my father-in-law has diabetes, my mother-in-law had cancer, take Tylenol and go home, and if you can't breathe, go to the hospital. That's all they were told. Why is it that the people were so reticent to treat?
Well, I remember when it first came out thinking, well, this is not going to be my problem. This is going to be, it's going to all take place in the hospitals. I really thought, when you watch something on the news, you're like, that could never happen to me.
Yeah.
Um, and, but, if people showed up, I wasn't going to say, oh no. I mean, that's just contrary to how I was trained, and contrary to basic medical ethics.
Yeah.
But I think it was part of it was fear that, and part of it was, well, if I don't have to do it, why not just let the hospitals deal with it?
Yeah.
And you probably have staffing issues. It's hard as an outpatient physician to keep it staffed when there's people getting sick all the time, or there's fear and exposure and all that. So it was sort of an easy way out for the outpatient physician is just go to the emergency room and not take on any of that responsibility. And became so commonplace that they didn't get criticized the way they should have been.
Right. Right. So let's talk about, I actually don't know the details. I just know sort of the overall view on your legal battles. What started it, and what is the status of it now?
Yeah, so I had privileges at Houston Methodist Hospital, and they were the first in the country to mandate the shots. They did it 5 months before Biden. They did it April 1st, 2021.
Wow.
And I stepped on their toes. I just started speaking out against mandates. I said it publicly. At the time, I didn't really have much of a following. Like if I tweeted something, I'd get like one like. So really didn't expect anything to happen. But I tweeted out vaccine mandates are wrong 25 times. And I included a
Hi, everyone. It's Naomi Wolf. The American healthcare system is broken. Big pharma charges an arm and a leg for their products, while insurance companies are focused on growing healthcare spending. So I'm always researching ways to take care of myself naturally. And one of the most overlooked factors is improving your blood flow. That means more oxygen and nutrients to your brain, heart, muscles. All our bodies need a little extra help as we get older. I use Blood Flow 7 from Juvenon. It works by boosting nitric oxide levels 230% and opening arteries up to 62% to improve blood flow. With just one dose a day, it's helped improve my stamina, energy, focus, and it supports my heart health, all without caffeine or stimulants. It's doctor formulated, scientifically backed with premium and natural ingredients. I wouldn't share it if it didn't work for me and for people I love. So go to www.bloodflow7.com/daily clout or click the link in the description below to learn more today.
screenshot with a patient testimonial. And 5 days later, I got a text message from a reporter at the Houston Chronicle asking me to confirm, is it true that your privileges have been suspended based on comments you made on social media? And I did a double take. I'm like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Uh, check your sources. And then I go to my email and there it is. So they went straight to the media, and then they went on Twitter and posted that I was spreading dangerous misinformation, harmful to the community. At the same time, I was trying to help this patient in Dallas who was dying in the hospital. His wife sued to get him ivermectin. The hospital would not let him try it. She asked me to be the expert, and I agreed. I testified along with State Senator Bob Hall, and we won the case. And the court ordered the hospital to grant me temporary privileges. Hospital put up all these roadblocks. There was a bunch of back and forth. I kind of just left it to my lawyer, and she said, yes, you have the green light. You can send a nurse to the hospital now. I do that. The nurse is greeted by the police, and she's turned away. She never gives him the ivermectin, but the medical board, the hospital turned me into the medical board for that. And they actually found me guilty. They said that I sent a nurse to the hospital without privileges. And now I'm waiting my sentence. So I had a hearing 3 months ago to decide my punishment, and I'm waiting on that. But on the upside, I did sue the FDA over ivermectin and won. They put out the infamous horse tweet, right? So the attractive healthcare worker nuzzling the horse. And you don't really need the caption, but says, seriously, y'all, you're not a horse, you're not a cow. Stop it. Yeah. And that was August 2021. That was right before Biden mandated the shots. And I feel like it was very strategic because they wanted, in order to increase uptake of the COVID shots, they had to discredit ivermectin. It was it was part of the plan. But the FDA is not allowed to tell physicians how to use the medications they've approved. They're not allowed to tell patients, how to treat their diseases. And so that's what they were doing. And the court slapped them down. They agreed to take down the misinformation from their website and from social media. Unfortunately, though, as you know, it's still hard to get ivermectin. And if it were up to me, the FDA would just make it over the counter. And they would also issue a statement to educate the public and educate physicians about how safe it is and how it is used in humans. Won the Nobel Prize in Medicine. It's actually safer than the antibiotics. It's safer than Tylenol. So, it's. I know New Hampshire has been trying to get it over the counter. Right?
So I was in office during COVID, and 2022, obviously the COVID treatment option or issues became very, very evident, right? And I also knew that it probably wasn't specific to ivermectin. I still think that there's like a broader issue as far as government being able to sway public opinion and boards in such a way that there's so much intimidation with off-label use of drugs in general, or that any drug could potentially be politicized in the way that hydroxychloroquine was, ivermectin was. And so we came up with a bill to say that which should be obvious, which is that no doctor can have their license threatened for off-label prescribing, and no pharmacist, because the issue had really been with pharmacies being unwilling to fill, and no pharmacist can have their license threatened for off-label filling. So that was sort of our main bill. This was in 2022, but we felt that we needed a red herring. So we did put in the ivermectin over-the-counter bill at the same time that Tennessee did. Mm. And that bill was fascinating to watch. So we brought in Dr. Paul Merrick for the original House hearing, and he got up there. It was right before things got really bad with ivermectin, like really, really bad. So the Hospital Association lobbyist was there, and he was set to go after Dr. Merrick. And he gets up there after listening to Dr. Merrick's testimony and says, well, I was sent here to oppose ivermectin, but I think I might need to do some more research before I make an opinion. And so the bill passed the House. Then it gets to the Senate. We we brought people from the FLCCC back in, and it did pass. I mean, I got to tell you, like most of the Republican legislators had taken ivermectin. I mean, they wouldn't be willing to admit to that, but like most of them had taken it at this point, right? So it passed. It got all the way to the governor's desk. It did work as intended. The other bill got signed, and he vetoed this one. This is Governor Sununu. He was very much like I have the scales, and I have to check, my roster in both places. But so he vetoed the ivermectin bill. But then it was your efforts bringing awareness to this issue, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So you have really started a push across the country of making ivermectin over the counter again. And I hadn't had anybody put that bill back in, but because of your efforts, I started getting legislators coming to me and being like, we should do this, we should do this, we should do this again. Tell me about what you've been doing with that.
Well, just basically tracking it, just really trying to get the message out. I think there were 14 states with I should go look, but it's on my X account. I think at one point there were 14 states that had bills proposed to make ivermectin over the counter.
Yep.
And as of now, 4 have passed. So Tennessee in 2022, and then most recently Idaho, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Texas came close. I mean, sort of. It never even really got a proper hearing in the House. And they're trying to get it on the special session, but I'm not so sure that. I mean, Texas is not what people think. North Carolina, I think, still has a chance. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, what I've been hearing though is, at least in Arkansas, that they're having problems, even though there's a law, it hasn't really happened. And because the pharmacists are using excuses like, well, it's not packaged properly, or I don't know. I think
really difficult to make it. So technically speaking, only the feds can make something over the counter, right? So we have workaround laws at the state level, which are something I particularly like to work to do activism in. I'm always trying to get around the feds. And the workaround really is that there are such thing as a standing order over the counter, right? So in New Hampshire, we have a couple of drugs, like birth control is available over the counter via standing order. I don't know, naltrexone, like there's a couple other ones like that. And that's sort of the workaround for it. And that's what we were trying to do here. So what we ended up doing this year, because by the time the legislators saw your activism on the subject and came to me, it was past the bill submission period. So I had heard that the senator who is the chair of the Senate Health and Human Services Committee, who is a pharmacist, was very, very in favor of ivermectin over the counter. So I called him, and I got to tell you, the Senate is definitely the worst chamber in New Hampshire by a landslide. So I'm thinking, well, if that's the case, then maybe we can really do this, right? So I called him, and he was like, oh yeah, that's why I originally ran for office, was when that bill got vetoed in 2022. And so I definitely want to do this. So we, he helped me write the language to get put onto a bill that had already passed the Senate on a similar subject. And it was in the House, and we had a non-germane amendment hearing. So you have to have a special hearing if you want to add an amendment that's not germane to the bill. So we did that. The House passed the amendment. Great. Goes on to the Senate. I fully expected that bill would have no problem sailing through. They have a Republican supermajority in the New Hampshire Senate. The head of the committee where it was going to, who would make the decision to make a motion to pass it, had helped me write it.
Right.
And then I watched the session, and it got killed unanimously without any words at all.
Unanimously.
And I have tried contacting him since then, and he has completely ghosted me.
Wow. He helped you write it, and
yes. I can't figure out what happened, and he won't contact me. He won't call me back. So I have you and I talked about it a little bit over Twitter, and I'm like, I don't really know what happened. I really thought if it passed the House, it's a done deal, because the man who helped me write it is in charge of making the motion to pass it, and he made a motion to kill it.
What's his name?
His name is Senator David Rochefort, I think is how you say his name. Yeah,
As in the cheese?
Rochefort. That's how you say it.
Rochefort. Okay. All right, I'll look him up.
I was truly astounded. I've never seen anything quite like it. We might try again next year. We'll see. I still, we did get the bill passed, like I said, in 2022, that pharmacists can't have their license threatened, and things did get a little bit better. The big, like, CVS, Walgreens, all the big chains, they had policies that were coming down from corporate, and I didn't really notice a shift with them. It was the smaller pharmacies that were like, oh yeah, fine, yeah, I'll fill, no problem now. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, things did get better, but let's talk about your other initiative, which is pulling the COVID vaccines from the market. You came up with a pledge for legislators, and I love that idea. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So some people criticize me for being too one issue, but to me, it's a litmus test.
Yeah.
And this directly impacted every single voter, and it's I'm seeing the carnage every day. Still, years later, I mean, I'm still seeing vaccine injured patients and even new people coming in because they're not getting help from anybody. So it's constantly in my face, and we know that the vast majority of Americans are not getting these shots, and I presume politicians are amongst those. So if you look at the CDC's data, 20% got the last shot. So 80% are not following CDC recommendations. And my thing is, if you are an elected representative and you're not willing to take the risk for yourself or for your children, then why should your constituents take that same risk? So why are you not speaking out about it? So I'm just having people, with the moral courage to just simply state the COVID shot should be pulled off the market, and just trying to gather momentum so that we can just get the attention of HHS and President Trump.
You got originally a ton of state legislators, and I have to tell you, state legislators are so much better than federal ones.
Right.
We have this real problem at the federal level where the people who should run for that don't want to, okay?
Right.
Because they're sane and normal.
Right,
So,
right.
Yeah, state legislators tend to be, just heads above. Do you have any federal legislators who have signed the pledge?
Only 3: Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, and Senator Ron Johnson. So, and it's disappointing because they're
that list.
Yeah, exactly. But Nancy Mace admits to having an injury. Perhaps she doesn't know about the list, but I have directly asked her in the comments, and it's just disappointing because, like I said, they're not getting these shots because of concerns. We know they don't work, but the CDC, our federal government, saying everybody should get one. So if they're ignoring the CDC, they need to speak up.
Let's talk about MAHA. You've been very critical of where the direction in which it's headed. I just simply always had my doubts. I was never convinced that it was a great, we were all very excited in a way when RFK got the position, and it seemed like there was potential. I just never really thought that much would be different. There's been some subtle differences, but why is it that you think that there is such a hyper focus on food? And do you think that is the most important issue of the moment?
Yeah, no. I mean, there's 2 theories. Well, we just need to focus on food and, grease the wheels, gain some momentum, gain some political points, and then we can go after mRNA. But
Yeah.
or there's the theory that, okay, this is all a misdirection strategy. It's quite purposeful. This is, we'll gain some ground on food to make a bunch of people happy, and then we'll just sweep aside the elephant in the room. Um, I think it's the latter. Unfortunately, I just don't see. It's just the Maha report did not even mention mRNA, not one word. And the people from Maha who are the leaders kind of came out of nowhere. They were not warriors during COVID. I don't know where they came from, but they came and they rose very quickly. And so it's just suspicious to me. It's disappointing. But I guess we just keep chugging along and calling it out and hope that, I don't know what's going on with Kenny. I don't know if you saw yesterday that apparently he was on vacation when Marty McCarry declared that the COVID shots would be fully approved for children.
Oh.
And then he fired his chief of staff yesterday. Kennedy did. So maybe there's stuff shaken out in the background that
maybe there's a learning curve. I actually don't think it's purposeful. I think he has good intentions. I think people are very, very, very misguided when they say that we shouldn't criticize him, because I think that he needs backup. If anything, he needs people to be louder so he has
Right.
more support, because I don't believe that he is doing this on purpose, or that he's in any way kind of gone to the dark side. I really think he has good motivations. I think that he is not frankly, the ruthless executive of that department that we needed in that position. I
Mhm.
think he's very good at running an NGO, and I think that is incredibly different than running a department of the federal government.
Right. Yeah. Well, and when I say Maha, I don't even include him. I'm
Yeah,
thinking of all the activists in Maha.
sure.
Um, yeah, I kind of think
And
there's
the
something.
people who have surrounded themselves, right? We have the means. I don't even know what to make of some of these people who have been very connected to him only as he was getting in there and
Right.
never before. I worry that he's a little bit too trusting.
Right.
Um like almost like too pure-hearted and too trusting
Right.
of the system in a way. And
Right.
the people around him. You and I probably did talk to the same person. I'm not gonna like name any names, but I got interviewed for a position in Maha like in November, right? And in the admin that was supposedly coming, and I actually didn't realize that that's what the call was about until I was like in it. But the person who was interviewing me, who supposedly was working just under Bobby, said, "Oh, you're a medical freedom activist. Well, hopefully after 4 years, I don't think that we're going to have the need of your services anymore." And I thought, "Oh, that's so sweet and naive and
Yeah.
silly." you know? But I think he's struggling, and I think that our message should be that we need to be louder in support and not be like, "Oh, sit down and shut up because, he's doing the best he can and you don't understand what's going on behind the scene." No,
Right.
if we all sit down and shut up, then they think that we're just fine with everything that's going on.
Exactly. Yes. I feel like initially people were really against criticizing him, but I feel like that's loosened up a little bit
A little bit.
as time has gone on. And
Yeah.
Trump too. People are obviously with the whole Epstein thing. You're seeing this whole wow. People are criticizing Trump for the first time. So it's interesting.
Yeah, except that the polls just came out showing that Republican voters support him more than ever. So some of that is like, Twitter noise that's not quite real kind of thing. He does feel it, but it's not necessarily real. I am concerned about this hyper focus on food, and not just because it distracts from what are the bigger issues. I almost think it kind of discredits him a bit. Do you agree with that? Because he's out there with this message that if we take all sugar products and convert them to natural sugar instead of corn syrup, and if we eliminate all food dyes, all chronic disease is going to go away. That is not true.
Well, yeah, I've said that. It's like seed oil, eliminating seed oils is not going to solve our obesity problem, right? I mean,
No.
sure, there's validity to seed oils and obesity, but it's much more than that. You can't just take these little steps and expect to see a huge
A corn
impact.
syrup Coke versus a sugar Coke is the same amount of sugar at the end of the day.
Right, right.
I
It,
just
it's waste of political capital, in my opinion.
Yes, and I think it really does harm his overall mission because I
Right,
don't think it's credible.
right,
There are listen, I never buy anything with artificial food color in my house. Okay, ever. That's my choice. Um, However, I could get just as fat on eating things that have no artificial food colors. And that's just a reality. I could
right,
get just as unhealthy, frankly,
right.
eating too much of things that don't have artificial food colors or don't have corn syrup. And so I just think, and this was my concern when he was going in there, even before he really got going, was if he focuses on things like this, the medical community is going to have even more ammunition against him
Yeah.
than they do now. Do you agree with that?
Well, I totally agree. It's sort of pop medicine that's not, it's kind of fluffy.
Yeah,
It's
way
a
of
lot
saying
of
it.
influencers out there that are, podcasters making their living off of these diet messages. And, to be honest, we haven't figured out the perfect diet. If we had, then we wouldn't need Ozempic. um, so, yeah, a lot of it's just common sense and self-restraint, and maybe that should be the message more than anything, rather than
Mhm. That you just can't actually eat whatever you want to when like food is hyper palatable and tastes great, you know?
right, right,
Yeah,
common
I know. I do find that concerning. I appreciate that you are continuing to go to town, hammer the message. And I am hoping that the more people start to criticize it, the more things will change. I think you're right. I do think that things are loosening a little bit where you're like, oh, you can criticize what's going on here. It's not that bad. So hopefully there's that. I got to tell you, I am very concerned that they're going to start converting the entire childhood schedule to mRNA.
oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
There are 500 mRNA products in the pipeline.
Couple years ago, I introduced a bill that, sometimes you rattle a cage that you didn't know was there.
Mhm,
And I had a bill introduced that I wrote that just said no vaccine can be mandated, which we do have school vaccine mandates like every other state. No vaccine can be mandated that has not had human clinical trials. And to
mhm,
me, that was more like it's not a bill that I expect to become law. There are different reasons why you introduce legislation, and one of them was I wanted to look at the department and be like, I see you and I know what you did. Okay.
right.
And so I introduced that bill, and the state epidemiologist who locked us all down gets in there. He was up there for an hour, like shaking in his boots, talking about how this bill could never pass. And I realized, oh no, they plan on doing this a lot because they're going
Mhm,
to create the mRNA platform, and then they're just going to overlay all these viruses onto it and say that it's been tested because
mhm,
it's the same platform.
right.
And that was essentially what he was saying.
Wow.
And that was terrifying. And that's when I decided like we had to go all in on. So the vaccine schedule in New Hampshire, the only way you can add a vaccine to it, we don't just default to the ACIP schedule. Um,
Okay.
we've been pretty conservative over the years, but a bureaucrat, the health department can just decide to add one at any time that they want. Now they haven't, but when I realized that that's where this was headed, I was like, we have to go all in on removing that power from the bureaucrats. So we did end rulemaking this year. That was a really big like accomplishment of ours this year because I'm listening to this guy shaking in his boots that we're going to ban him from, having untested vaccines added to the schedule at some point in time. And I'm thinking, oh no, what's coming down the pipeline? And what do you know about the RSV vaccine?
Yeah. So, wait, sorry, what?
There's an mRNA one out of that, right?
Yeah, and it's the same as with these other things. Short-term outcomes data doesn't prevent hospitalization. I mean, that's sort of the goal, right? With these viruses, is prevent hospitalization and death. And they weren't able to prove that. And they also I need to go back and look at it. It's been a while, but I just remember it's not. It's same old. It's shortcuts. It's not. I would never recommend it. So.
Indeed. All right. Well, I won't keep you too much longer, but thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your work. Keep it up. And we'll stay in touch. Tell people how they can find you, because everyone should be following you because of the work the activism work that you do and the information you put out. So tell people how to find you.
Well, I'm active, probably too active, on X at MD Breathe. And then I have a Substack called Day 8. And then I'm coming out with a book called Dangerous Misinformation. And you can pre-order that now on Amazon.
I love that title. That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
That's it for the Liberty Lobbyist. I am Melissa Blasek. You can follow me at Melissa Blasek NH or at Rebuild NH. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can email me director@rebuildnh.com. Until next time.